Greetings and welcome back to Immunotrek. The last couple weeks I've had a subject that's been really on my mind a lot, and my personal job that I have has really stirred a lot of thoughts in this area that I want to cover on this video. But before I get into that subject, I kind of want to head it up with something else that I've been pondering a lot, and that is a lot of people out there are afraid of the word Noahide. They don't know what it is. Only a few, to be honest with you, I think only a few really who delve into the 7 Noahide laws understand what a Noahide is. And I'm just going to put it in some plain, simple terms that a friend of mine has actually even helped me even put into words some of my thoughts that I have struggled with in trying to explain. But first and foremost, a Noahide is just a term that describes the children of Noah. Just like the word American. I live in America, the United States of America, and therefore I am an American. That's what that is. A Noahide is a child of Noah, which technically is every human being on the face of the earth. That's all it is. It's not a theological word. It's just a word that describes humanity. That we're children of Noah. Yes, we all trace back to Adam, but on this side of the flood, every human being is from Noah and his family. Now, that being said, a lot of people who study the 7 instructions of the Creator, known today as the Noahide laws, have a lot of confusion because of the word Noahide is tied to the word law. And many of us have tried to explain what all this means so others won't be so frightened or upset, especially those in theological religious circles. They go to town with the word Noahide laws. It scares them. It's an affront to their religious beliefs, and therefore there's a lot of videos on YouTube that is anti-Noahide law. And before I get into my subject this morning, I just wanted to just set the record straight that the 7 instructions from the Creator comes from the Hebrew Scriptures. Some of them are directly pointed out, just like, to Noah, that a man shall not shed blood of another man, because that person is in the image of God. That's easy. The prohibition of murder. That's probably one of the easiest ones to point out. The people who are anti-Noahide laws do not know how to study the Hebrew Scriptures in the way they've been studied for 3,300 years. We have to go to the Jews, those of us of the nations. We have to go to the learned Jews who are part of a tradition that has been studying the Hebrew Scriptures in their original language, in its original language, for over 3,300 years. They have 3,300 years of tradition and knowledge on delving into what God said for Moses to write down. And one of the things that the ancient sages teach us is that the Noahide laws aren't a basic 1, 2, 3 point system that God gave man. God gave man some of them outright, and the others are developed through the relationship that man had with God. The laws of marriage and then the laws of theft and things like that come from that. Now, when we get to the 10 Commandments that God gave Israel, He did codify. He gave 10 words that pretty much the 7, they're based on the 7 laws. The other extensions of the 10 Commandments versus the 7 has to deal with Israel as the priestly nation. It fine detailed everything, but even the Jews are required to observe the 7 laws, except for the dietary law. They do have to follow the dietary law of not taking meat from a living animal, but their dietary law is even pared down further because of who they are and the job they are to do. For the rest of man, God says whatever is moving on the earth shall be food for you, as He gave the herbs. And so that's simple. And in my blogs, I've tried to explain this Noahide issue as returning back to an Adam state or a Noah state. Man with God before religion kidnapped the world. And that's the only way I knew how to do it. But a friend of mine, David Ben Shul, he really coined the phrase the best. And I asked his permission to be using his phrase in my blogs and my videos, because as I've pondered what he has said about what the Noahide laws are, the Noahide life is, it's really the best way to say it. And to be honest with you, in the Christian world, there's a very similar phrase that's used. I know some of the churches around here on their billboards, they have this program called the Emmaus Walk. And so I hope this will ease some tension here with those that are looking into the Noahide laws, has some confusion of what it all means. My friend David puts it this way, and I give him credit for it, because it is, the more I've pondered on it, the more I would like to use this phrase as well, if he permits. And that is what the Noahide laws and the Noahide life is all about. It's called a Genesis walk. Well, the word Genesis is Greek. It comes from the first word of the Hebrew Bible, which is Breshit, which means in the beginning, or it's translated in the beginning. There's actually, when you get into the Hebrew, there's a lot more said there than just what is translated. And that's customary with Hebrew. English is a horrible language to try to translate Hebrew, because you lose so much, you miss so many things. But for general purposes, Breshit, the very first word of the Hebrew scriptures, is translated in the beginning, or in the beginning of. And really what David is telling us with this term, the Genesis walk, is we are returning to the walk with the Creator that was in the beginning. Just like, a lot of people, especially if you're here in the United States, you're football fans, basketball fans, baseball fans. Many of us have played sports growing up in school, whether we played for the school or we had it in recreation class. And those of us who actually played on teams before, we know that as we grow and we learn and the sport, we begin to experiment with moves and plays and things. And everyone that knows sports knows that when a team begins to get out of hand, what does the coach do? He brings them back to the basics. A basketball team, they come in one day, they've been on a losing streak because they've been taking hot shots and fancy passes and trying to do, weird plays, and the coach has them line up and gives everybody a basketball and says, now dribble. We're talking about seasoned players. And the coach is saying, today we're going to learn how to dribble. And tomorrow we're going to learn how to pass. We're going to learn the laws of dribbling, what you can do and cannot do when you're dribbling or when you're passing. The very basics. He has a baseball player come up to the plate and learns how to swing. He has people throwing the ball from base to base to base, making it circle. And a football player, he teaches the quarterback and the center how to hike the ball, how to throw the ball. He teaches receivers how to receive the ball, how to grab the ball with both hands, and teaches the quarterback to aim for their chest area for the ball. And they go back to the basics, and that is the Genesis walk. This is what the Noahide laws, the Noahide life that so many people are hearing about is our coach, the Creator, is taking us back to the basics. And there are basically 7 categorical instructions for living life as a human being that every one of us has strayed from. And those of us out here that are teaching and making videos and sharing the Noahide laws are basically saying, hey, the coach is taking us back to the beginning and teaching us the Genesis walk all over again. And that's really what all this is about. I just wanted to calm your fears about the word Noahide. It is about going back to the beginning, a Genesis walk, and learning how to walk all over again. How to dribble a ball, how to pass a ball, how to catch a ball. Going back to the basics. Our coach is looked down upon us and he says, y'all not playing the game right. And the basics is how you win the game, is following the basics. So that's kind of an introduction to what I wanted to get into today. And I just want to be a little bit brief today about this subject. And this subject pertains to the prohibition of theft. Theft is probably one of our most detailed instructions of life. It encompasses every aspect of life. There's not a part of life that theft is not its foundation as far as violating the prohibition. And here, what has really been on my mind the last couple of weeks, some of you out here listening to this video may have a job where you are transporting material like from one owner to another owner. I'm just going to use these examples: FedEx, UPS, delivery services. And what I'm saying is, I work for a company where I package materials going to a customer, and I get tickets back at me that such and such was damaged. And one time this last week, I sent out a $300-something item for the 3rd time because it arrived at the customer damaged. I even took pictures of my inspection of it, how it was packaged, and put stickers on it telling that it was a glass object, and that it was inspected before it left our shop and it was free of damage. But yet I get 3 tickets that it was damaged. And we had to replace those at our cost. And so this really has bothered me a lot, and this happens in all industries, that a supplier sells a product and it gets to the customer, whether it's another business or an individual, and it's damaged, it's mishandled. That is theft. That is theft. If you're handling someone else's property and you're misusing it and not caring for it, then you are violating the prohibition of theft. One of the, like I said, our 7 instructions are categorical. And one of the sub-rulings under the prohibition of theft are the laws of bodily injury and property damage. And I wanted to read just a couple of things from this book called The Divine Code, written by Rabbi Moshe Weiner. And the Divine Code is an extensive, I'll just hold it up. It's an extensive work on the study of the 7 laws and their sub-rulings, however you want to say it. It's not a book that's just read cover to cover. It's a reference book. And we can learn a lot from what Rabbi Weiner had done in spending his time in researching these laws and their sub-laws. And so on page 611, under bodily injury and property damage, it says, on 611, in paragraph 3, it says, a person is considered predisposed. I like using the word accountable. That's the word I've been using for 2-3 weeks. There is no accountability between the supplier and the customer. And this has really bothered me. And I'll be honest with you, I've laid awake at night trying to, I'm like, this is a problem with our society, that no one cares for someone else's property, and that it is a violation of theft. That people don't even know that, oh, I have a box here, it says fragile, it has glass, and they're sitting there tossing it back and forth and putting it on a delivery truck, and the guy drops it. Oh well. There is no care or accountability for handling someone else's property that is not yours. And it says, and I'm going to interject the word accountable. A person is considered accountable to damaging at all times. Therefore, whether the perpetrator damages with intention or not, was awake or asleep or intoxicated, he must fully pay for the bodily or property damage that he caused, if it could have been prevented by taking appropriate care. He goes on to say here, it says, on page 614, paragraph 8, it is forbidden to damage another person's property. And in paragraph 9, I like to include this as well. It says, it is forbidden to damage another's money in any way, whether the damage is caused through action or speech. So, in a way, we have 2 aspects here. If you're mishandling someone else's property, you're not only damaging their property, you're damaging their money. Because a supplier, the way things work in the business world today, which one day it will change, accountability will be held upon everyone that handles someone else's property and someone else's money. But when you damage someone else's property, you're damaging their money, because now they have to take money out of their pocket to replace that is damaged, either for a customer or for themselves. So you've damaged not only their property, but you've damaged their money that was to be used somewhere else. So this is going back to a Genesis walk, walking in the way of the beginning, the way our Creator wants us to behave as human beings. This book came from a supplier to me. The supplier owned it. The transfer of ownership came to me. I paid for it. So the transfer of ownership came when it came to me, and I received what I paid for. But in between the supplier and myself are the handlers. And when they mishandle something, because of the way our society is set up, the supplier, if this comes to me damaged, and there are return rules and laws that every company has. But for the most part, like in the business, in the work that I have, where I'm employed, is we pretty much 99% of the time replace a damaged product. You know what that does? That affects me from getting a raise in the future because of someone else's negligence. We're having to pay out money that the employees where I work at can't get a raise, or can't, or the product itself has to go up in price. To someone has to eat that, but the handler is set free, and it's wrong. It is wrong that the handler between a supplier and a customer can get away with theft and the damaging of property and monies of someone else. This is what living the Noahide life is about, self-improving yourself, that when I handle someone else's property, that I do it correctly. And you know, when I'm packaging these products that I have to package and send out, they're not mine. They're my employer's, and they're going to my employer's customer. Therefore, I'm held under how I handle these products. I'm under the same rules. I should not damage. If I do damage it, I'm damaging someone else's property. I'm damaging my employer's money. So I'm not harping on telling people you got to do. I'm under the same rule. This is why we choose to walk the Genesis walk. We want to improve our lives. We look at every aspect of our life. How can we walk in the prohibition of theft? And for me, at my job, it's how I handle my employer's products, because they're not mine. This stuff's been eating at me for a couple of weeks now on this whole issue of property damage and damage of someone else's money. This teaches me to be careful. If I'm in a store somewhere and I'm looking at something, I don't want to drop it. Of course, you know, they got signs. You drop it, you break it, you bought it. That's the rule. But the rule should be from myself at first. How do I handle this? Yeah, I'm going to pull this shirt off the hanger, and I'm going to look at it. I might want to buy it, but it's not mine. It still belongs to someone else. We have to be careful in how we handle someone else's property, because not only is it their property, but their property is also their money. And God wants us to be careful with that. And so when you hear those who are anti-Noahide laws, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of learning how to handle someone else's property? How to not to have forbidden sexual relations, not to murder and to steal and to care for animals, to make sure that it's properly dead before you eat from it. What are people afraid of these 7 laws? This is humanity 101. This is the Genesis walk. And people from all over the world is learning about the Genesis walk, Humanity 101. And it's not a burden. It is the Creator saying, I made you, and this is your operating instructions. We are given free will to whether we will obey those instructions or not. But He made us, and He says, this is what I expect your life to look like. But humanity, like it did at the time of the flood, has gotten off base. And praise God, there's some of us humans that are returning back to the Creator and says, teach us the basics. And when we learn the basics, we change life. We change where we work, where we live, where we shop. And that is, we're not evangelizing. We're just telling people, join us together and listen to the coach teach us how to return back to the basics. So today I want to thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to Trek. Subscribe to my teacher's channel as well, Torah for the Nations. Pesach Sherbo. He teaches us, and we have classes about studying and talking about living the Noahide life, the Genesis walk, or however. David and them's group, Torah for the World, and you'll hear me mention David and Michael more and more as well. We've just become friends, and two more people that are learning the Genesis walk, as David puts it, and learning to live by the basics of humanity. We're learning Humanity 101. And we're excited about sharing Humanity 101, the Genesis walk, because it can change you as a person. It can change our society. So thank you. If you like my videos, hit the button, subscribe, share my videos, and with those that you feel could benefit from them. And thank you again, and have a most wonderful day. And remember this. Take this from this video. When you're handling property that doesn't belong to you, you have the opportunity to protect not only the property, but to protect your neighbor's money. You're loving your neighbor as yourself, as how you would want them to handle your property, and to be watchful of your money. Have a good day.